Welcome to the Acupuncture Outsider podcast. My name is Richard Hazel, and in the time it takes for you to commute to or from work, I hope to have shared something of interest about orthopedic acupuncture using motor points, trigger points, myofascial slings, neurofunctional acupuncture, segmental treatments, anything that crosses my mind that seems to be of interest. I hope you'll enjoy it. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Acupuncture Outsider. This is Richard Hazel, and today, I don't know if I'll be controversial. I bet I won't be controversial to people who listen to my podcast. I bet I'll be controversial to the people who don't listen to my podcast. I'm thinking, I'm like daydreaming about how we can change our system of, educational requirements. The NCCAOM, for most of us, controls what we need to learn by having the board exams that are set up, that we need to pass in order to get our state license as an acupuncturist. And I'm not even going to get into like a national exam so that we could all live wherever we want, but wouldn't that be great? But I'm thinking, since the NCCAOM is in charge of that, or sort of, I want to say, controls that aspect of licensure, they would actually have to change their board exams or change which board exams you need to take, so that state licensure could be updated to include orthopedics, which are based more on Western assessment and treatment, and Western medical diagnosis, and the treatment being driven by an understanding of rehab science and Western understanding of neurology and musculoskeletal pain and all of those sorts of things. So I'm like dreaming about that and wondering, like, how would we do that? And what I think is totally possible, but probably won't happen, would be, so people who are listening who aren't acupuncturists, I'll just tell you, like, there's a biomedical exam that many states require. Every state requires the acupuncture exam, and that includes understanding needle depths and precautions, contraindications. And then you have the Oriental medicine foundations exam, which is more testing your understanding of Chinese medicine theory, all completely based on herbal medicine. Like really understanding pattern diagnosis from an herbalist perspective. So you have those exams to take, and then if you want to do Chinese herbs, and that was in your education, then there's another exam for herbalists to take, so you can prove your bona fides as an herbalist. So that's what we have for licensure. And in New York, where I live, there are only two of those exams that are required: the acupuncture and the Oriental medicine foundations exam. So what I was thinking was, wouldn't it be great if you already knew that you didn't want to be a traditional acupuncturist, and you didn't really want to have to work with herbs? And I personally don't think that you can use a TCM diagnosis for acupuncture unless you have an adjunct of herbs, because the whole diagnosis is based on an internal Zongfu pattern that is based on Chinese herbology and not the physical manifestations of neurology and musculoskeletal pain, etc. It's internal medicine that you're trying to affect with needles, whereas orthopedics, the needles are actually going somewhere that is relevant to the issue structurally. Um, so, wouldn't it be great if we had a board exam that was controlled by the NCCAOM in acupuncture orthopedics, so that your theory that you were learning was based more on movement patterns and postural issues, intrinsic stabilization, the pelvic girdle, the shoulder girdle, um, cervicogenic headache, migraine, how to safely dry needle trigger points. When do you do that? When do you not do that? Understanding the sort of the proper assessment, orthopedic assessment, gait analysis, and different things like that. It would be great if, because people get a little bit of ortho in school, but it's really just meant for them to understand what the doctor has sent them in the patient chart. You need to see, see like Faber showed this, and Apley's showed that. And acupuncturists sometimes will use that because they want to do an orthopedic assessment, and hopefully then they're applying a more orthopedic approach when they treat. But so the whole point of what I'm saying is, wouldn't it be great if you could decide at the beginning and not have to learn a bunch of Shanghan Lun theory to be an acupuncturist if you didn't want to do the Chinese herbology? And what I would want to say before everybody gets their panties in a bunch would be, I'm not asking any of the traditional acupuncture schools to change a single thing. I would want to open a market for an educational institution that would focus on acupuncture orthopedics, so that you would go to a school based on what you wanted to be able to accomplish with your patients as an acupuncturist. So you would not be forcing a Western curriculum of treatment into a traditional Chinese medicine school. I already know from personal experience it doesn't work well. There's a lot of resentment. There's a lot of backbiting. There's a whole lot of, um, I won't say resentment. But there's a lot of resistance in a if you try to mix the two. So, wouldn't it be great? You could go to a school where you knew you wanted to treat mobility and pain. You would learn traditional acupuncture meridians. You would learn the Chinese acupuncture points. You would learn how to needle them. You would learn all the contraindications. You would learn the basic Zong Fu approach as well as the meridian approach. And wouldn't it be great if in this school you could learn a meridian style acupuncture that was based on something like Dr. Tan's balance method or Master Tong, something that would really use the meridians in a way that actually we know we get good results, especially for pain and mobility. So, all right, but I digress. So you go to this school, you learn the acupuncture points, you learn what you need to pass your board exam with the NCCAOM, but then you have an acupuncture orthopedic exam that would cover all of these things: the motor points, trigger point, pain referral patterns, postural assessment, orthopedic assessment, neurology, using electric stimulation for neuromodulating migraines and other neuropathies, learning how to treat neuropathies with electric stimulation and points, nerve trunk stimulation. That would be an acupuncture education. And then you would sit for your exam. So you would take the acupuncture orthopedic exam, which had an hour, number of hours of clinical experience required to be able to sit for it. You would have your acupuncture exam that everybody needs to take so that you have your contraindications, your acupuncture point names and their functions according to either Zong Fu or meridian systems. And you would have your clean needle technique, etc. And the reason that gets even better, if we did that, is that we could lobby that when other professions want to be able to do dry needling, and we know that they also do other traditional forms of acupuncture. Now, many of them do. They would have to pass the NCCAOM board exam for acupuncture orthopedics, which would have some sort of hundreds of hours of clinical experience in order to pass it, in order to be licensed to take to use it in their practice. So there would be an education required, and they could probably attend one of these acupuncture schools that had that curriculum, or maybe within their profession, they would be able to create a curriculum based on what they know the requirements would be for this NCCAOM exam. I know it's pie in the sky. I'm not. I'm not naive. There is entrenched power, and it's really hard to change the status quo. But I wanted to be able to say that, wouldn't it be great if, because I think if we at least are thinking about what we would like our education to look like, maybe we can have a positive impact eventually over time on the institutions that do educate people for the career of acupuncture. And maybe we can impact the NCCAOM in some way that would shift them in a direction that would allow more people to become acupuncturists without having to become experts in Chinese herbology, if that was not what they wanted to do with acupuncture. We have Dr. Joseph Wong and what he contributed in Canada. They call him the father of Canadian acupuncture for a reason, and his approach was very neuroanatomical, and I'm sure it had a very positive impact on the curriculum in Canada. I think there are plenty of acupuncturists in Canada that only do TCM. I don't really understand what happened along the way, but I think it has a lot to do with who was allowed to learn neuroanatomical acupuncture, and it was being taught mostly to physicians, physical therapists, and eventually chiropractors. And now, of course, in the past 10 years, acupuncturists are now able to learn at McMaster along with the other professions, whereas I think it really wasn't allowed at that point. I know that you still cannot learn IMS, Dr. Gunn's approach of acupuncture, segmental acupuncture with motor points. You can't learn it as an acupuncturist. So, and that's in Canada. So it's a little crazy, but we're not helping ourselves by not finding a way to expand the educational options for people who really want to focus on acupuncture orthopedics. All right, I've probably said enough to piss off enough people, but I wanted to put it out there because it's not really something we talk about very much. We do talk about how to keep physical therapists from doing dry needling, but what if we were more focused in a more positive direction, where instead of worrying about physical therapists, we were worried about ourselves and our own abilities to use more Western diagnosis in our treatments with great skill and understanding. Wouldn't it be great if you had an acupuncture education that went through all the possible peripheral nerve entrapments that we can treat successfully with acupuncture, so that you would recognize an issue of like the sural nerve or lateral cutaneous nerve, or you would have you would see something and you would say, oh, that looks like some sort of plantar nerve entrapment. Maybe the lateral plantar nerve is being entrapped by the abductor hallucis. Let's do an exam and see what we think. Wouldn't that be great? If that is your passion, if you love to treat people who are in pain that nobody has been able to help, and you want to be that person who could help them, because that's what I get up every morning to do, and I get to see that. I get the people that nobody else helped, um, and it's exciting when you can change their quality of life like that. Um, and I just wish we had an educational system that included that, so that people didn't have to search all over with different sources and different educators and try to cobble something together that works for them. Whereas if we had a board exam, there would be a curriculum, and different schools could open and compete against each other to create the best curriculum that would lead people to that high standard of understanding, of acupuncture orthopedics. I just think, how great would that be if everyone who wanted to know how to do it would understand choosing segmental points based on myotome, dermatome, or sclerotome, or when do you use osteopecking? When should I use electric stimulation? When should I not use electric stim? And if I can't use electric stim, what are my options? What are my treatment options for these patients? And yeah, am I mostly trying to affect the autonomic nervous system, or is this a peripheral nerve issue, or is it central sensitization? People just need to understand these things, and nobody is standardizing an exam and therefore leading the way toward a different education system of acupuncture that could be so beneficial to just literally millions of people. So, all right, stepping off the soapbox, but I just want to plant seeds. I'm not really trying to. I'm not really trying to stir up anything, any controversy. I just want to plant seeds and hopefully get more people thinking about what can we do, um, to improve our patient outcomes, and how can the acupuncture world start to contribute to that. Okay. Um, have a great Sunday, and I will talk to you all soon.